What is up, Ive Warriors? It's your boy Edward V. And you know what? It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that the only study that people want to tout when it comes to intermittent fasting are the 1 out of 100 studies that come out saying, oh look, intermittent fasting doesn't work because this group lost muscle. Since the release of that study, I feel like no publication is trying to even look at studies looking at intermittent fasting with positive results, nor are any of the pundits, because they're like, see, confirmation bias right there. That study proves what I've been saying all along. Meanwhile, there have been thousands of studies before it that were positive for intermittent fasting with better controls and better methodologies, and then studies after it, just like the one we're going to talk about today. I'm going to go ahead and break it down in this video. Stay tuned. Alright guys, not going to bog you down with my jump rope, only $16.50. You can click on the top right hand corner of this video or down in the description box below. Yes, you get a speed rope swivel design for just $16.50. And thank you, of course, for your support. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Alright, so a brand new study has come out, and of course it's not going to get all of the publicity that the negative studies are getting, because it's cool when something is going good to just try to give it as much negativity as possible. So all the publications and pundits just jumped on that negative study, even though there were better studies, just overall better designed studies that showed positive results for intermittent fasting. But I digress. Let's keep on reinforcing why intermittent fasting is a positive thing. Now, one of the biggest arguments against intermittent fasting, believe it or not, is that no, if you do intermittent fasting, you're actually gonna gain weight. And here's why. Because when you don't eat, you're just so hungry. You're so hungry, you wanna eat everything. So when it's time for you to eat, you overcompensate for the fact that you just didn't eat for so long. And this is the most bro science, pseudoscience myth based on nothing but some type of logical consistency that they're trying to construct in their minds, because no studies, not one study, shows that if you don't eat for a long period of time, you overcompensate every single time. Now, your anecdotal experience of overcompensating where you did that, that's a different story, because when put under an experiment and using a control, for example, another group doing 3 meals a day while one group does intermittent fasting, the intermittent fasting group never overcompensates and almost always actually eats below their caloric intake and eats less calories than the control group, even when told how much they should be eating, which means they actually do not overeat. They either eat at their base level or they eat below it, not over it. But that's one of the biggest fear-monger weapons against intermittent fasting, is that you're just so ravishingly hungry, you overeat. None of those fitness gurus or pundits are accounting for the fact that your body actually hormonally adjusts to that situation, and that becomes its new biological rhythm. So you actually aren't even hungry. You're only really hungry at the thought of intermittent fasting when you don't do intermittent fasting. The thought of doing intermittent fasting makes you think that you would be hungry, but if you never tried it, if you don't get into that rhythm, into that flow, you won't understand it. So please, either use science to make your arguments so that I can go ahead and make my arguments against it, or stop talking about it simply because that's how you think you would feel if you tried intermittent fasting. Now, I also digress from that. I'm sorry, guys. I feel like I'm going on a tangent. So the study used a smartphone application. It was looking at time-restricted feeding, so 8 hours of eating and 16 hours of fasting, with a control group to counter this group so that we could see the differences. Now, this study wasn't really focusing on weight loss, because it was only a 12-week study. It just wanted to see what the compliance, what the eating compliance would be, what the eating occasions would be, or what type of foods the participants would eat. So they had a normal group that did not do intermittent fasting, and they had the TRE group, which is the time restricted feeding group. What they did was they gave both of them an application to put in and log what they're eating as they're eating it. And the reason that this is very important, because the application itself, just having to do that and giving that information to a researcher, makes you psychologically already try to be healthier. Even if you think you're not doing it, subconsciously you try to be healthier because you're logging your food. Plus, the food is in your face. It's telling you, hey, look, you're eating pizza and a donut and a burger. Like, it'll tell you, and you're constantly being reminded about what you're eating rather than putting it in the background and just eating it and moving on. So all of those psychological elements make you actually eat healthier. But to see if time restricted feeding had any psychological benefits of eating healthier or less, they needed a control group to also use the application, and that's what they did. So this study was published in November of 2020, so this month. It was run by Samar Malieb and colleagues, and it was published in the Journal of Nutrients. There were 20 participants, 11 in the TRE group, time restricted eating, and 9 in the normal control group. 85% of the entire group were females, and as I mentioned, it lasted 12 weeks. They used the technology-based mobile food record device to record what they were eating and categorize the types of foods that they were eating. So they categorized it to things like snacks and nutrient-dense foods or lack of nutrients, and even meal to non-meal consumption. So things that are actually complete meals, which means that they're hearty and they're nutrient dense, versus things that are snacks and not really full complete meals. What they found in the 12-week period, and even after the 12-week period, from creating that rhythm, is that the time restricted eating group consistently had less eating occasions, which of course, because they're eating in a smaller time window, but even when they were in their smaller time window, they weren't constantly grabbing different snacks. They were more inclined to eat full, hearty meals. They also ate more nutrient-dense meals than the control group. And they ate healthier foods on a more consistent clip than the control group. Now, keep in mind, both were instructed to eat whatever they want, to eat ad libitum. And both of them were using the dietary mobile device. But the TRE group still ate better food, more nutrient-dense foods, and healthier foods, while reducing their snacking and more consistently eating whole meals versus the control group. Further reinforcing the notion that when you're in an intermittent fasting protocol, you do not just eat a bunch of junk food and overeat. That does not happen simply because you're doing intermittent fasting. Your body hormonally adjusts to the fasting time frame. It doesn't just stay hungry all the time. What kind of craziness is that? That's like you lifting 25 pounds every single day, and you have this, and it's the same amount of resistance to lift those 25 pounds. It's the same amount of force and exertion. Your body is not creating any type of adaptive factors like muscle tissues or muscle fibers or twitch fibers to more easily go ahead and curl those 25 pounds. A fitness guru will tell you that you'll build hypertrophy and your muscles will be able to adapt to that 25 pounds. Because that's how biology works, adaptation. But for some reason, these same fitness gurus want to say that adaptation does not exist when it comes to intermittent fasting. But study after study after study always proves them wrong. And if you have a guru that you love that tells you that no, you do eat and you get hungry, please ask them to give you a study that says that, and then send that study over in my direction. I'm going to link the study that I just mentioned from the Journal of Nutrients below, so you can take a look at it for yourself. I hope this video was informative for you. And of course, as always, guys, I want to thank my patrons for my Patreon. I'm going to go ahead and put their names right up here.